The galaxy had seen war before, countless times, in fact. Empires rose and fell like waves crashing against a jagged shore, leaving behind ruins and whispers of glory. The Kavren Dominion had crushed the insectoid swarms of the Zithar expanse. The Telleri Collective had outmaneuvered the crystalline fleets of the Vakshun. Everyone knew the rules. Power ruled, mercy was weakness, and survival was a game of cold calculation. But nothing had prepared them for the humans. It started with a ripple, a faint tremor in the void. The Dominion's long-range sensors picked it up first, a blip so massive it overloaded the arrays. The analysts scoffed at the readings. A glitch, they said. A ship that size couldn't exist. The laws of physics wouldn't allow it. But then the Telleri confirmed it, their psionic relays screaming with static as something tore through the fabric of hyperspace. The Vakshuan went silent, their crystalline minds fracturing under the weight of what they'd glimpsed. By the time the first visuals came through, the galaxy's mightiest powers were already trembling. The ship was a monster. A jagged, blackened behemoth, its hull scarred with the burns of 1,000 battles, its silhouette a brutal defiance of elegance. It didn't glide like the Telleri cutters, or shimmer like the Vakshuan prisms. It lumbered, a predator too big to care about stealth, too strong to bother with grace. The Dominion called it an abomination. The Telleri whispered of a god's wrath made manifest. But the humans? They called it retribution. Admiral Kyle Tor of the Kavren Dominion stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Claw staring at the holoscreen. His mandibles clicked in agitation, his 4 eyes narrowing as the human vessel filled the display. Around him, his officers chittered nervously, their claws tapping against consoles. The retribution hung there in the void, silent and unyielding, dwarfing the Dominion's entire battle group. Its weapons weren't even powered up, not yet, but the sheer presence of it was enough to make Kale Tor's blood run cold. "Open a channel," he barked, his voice steady despite the dread coiling in his gut. "Demand their intent." The comms officer hesitated, her claws trembling. "Sir, they're not responding to standard hails. They're broadcasting something else." "Put it through," Kale Tor snapped. The bridge fell silent as the human transmission crackled to life. It wasn't a voice. Not at first. It was a sound, low and guttural, like the rumble of a dying star. Then came the words, spoken in a tongue the Dominion's translators barely grasped. The voice was deep, raw, and laced with something Kale Tor couldn't name. Anger, yes, but also sorrow, a wound that refused to heal. "This is Admiral Elena Voss of the United Earth Coalition. You took our worlds. You burned our cities. You thought us broken. You were wrong." Kale Tor's mandibles froze mid-click. The humans. He'd heard of them. Everyone had. A primitive species from a backwater system, barely worth the effort of conquest. The Dominion had raided their colonies decades ago, glassing a few planets for resources and leaving the rest to rot. The Telleri had called it a mercy to let them fade into obscurity. The Vakshuan had dismissed them as insignificant. But this was no broken remnant. This was vengeance given form. "Scan it," Kale Tor ordered, his voice tight. "Find a weakness." The sensor officer's claws danced over the controls, but his report came back laced with panic. "Sir, its hull. It's layered with an alloy we can't identify. Energy signatures suggest weapons capable of cracking a planet. And there's something else. It's carrying smaller craft. Thousands of them." Kyle Tor stared at the screen, his mind racing. Thousands of fighters. No fleet in the galaxy could deploy that many. The Dominion's largest carriers topped out at a few hundred. The Retribution wasn't just a ship. It was a war machine, a floating fortress built to drown its enemies in blood. "Raise shields," he said, forcing calm into his tone. "Signal the fleet. Prepare for..." He didn't finish. The retribution moved. Not fast, not graceful, but with a terrible inevitability. Its forward batteries flared to life, a cascade of crimson light that painted the void in hues of death. The first shot didn't hit the eternal claw. It didn't need to. It struck the Dominion's supply frigate, a vessel half a light second away, and turned it into a cloud of molten debris. The shockwave rattled Kyle Tor's flagship, and the bridge erupted in chaos. "Return fire!" he roared, but even as the order left his mouth, he knew it was futile. The retribution didn't flinch. It didn't slow. It advanced, relentless, a storm of steel and fury bearing down on them all. And in that moment, Kyle Tor understood. The galaxy had underestimated the humans. They hadn't just survived. They'd endured. They'd forged their pain into a weapon, their grief into a blade. The retribution wasn't here to negotiate or conquer. It was here to punish. The galaxy stood frozen in fear, and the humans were just getting started. The eternal claw shuddered as another volley from the retribution tore through the Dominion's outer perimeter. Kyle Tor gripped the edge of his command throne, his claws digging into the polished obsidian. The holoscreen flickered with static, struggling to keep up with the carnage unfolding beyond the viewport. One moment, the frigate Iron Fang was there, its shields flaring defiantly. The next, it was gone, vaporized in a bloom of plasma so bright it seared the shadows from the bridge. "Status!" Kyle Tor bellowed, his voice nearly lost in the cacophony of alarms. "Shields at 60%, the tactical officer rasped, her mandibles trembling. "The fleet's down to 7 ships. Their weapons. They're cutting through us like we're nothing." Kyle Tor's mind raced, grasping for a strategy, a shred of hope. The Dominion had faced overwhelming odds before. They'd crushed the Zithar swarms through sheer numbers, outlasted the Vaxuan through cunning. But this was no battle. It was an execution. The humans weren't fighting to win. They were fighting to erase. "Focus fire on their forward section," he ordered, forcing his voice steady. "If we can breach their hull—" "Sir, we've tried," the weapons officer interrupted, his tone bordering on insubordination. "Our plasma lances barely scratch it. Their armor, it's regenerating. I don't know how, but it's healing faster than we can damage it." Kyle Tor's eyes widened, a chill sinking into his bones. Regenerating armor? That was impossible. The Dominion's finest metallurgists couldn't dream of such technology. Yet there it was, the retribution shrugging